Su Muqing, who woke up from her dream, suddenly realized that she had entered the world of beauty and manga, and had become the blood food on the lips of vampires. Fortunately, the travelers came with their own systems. In the cold and deep sea, he awakened the soul-slaying blade, imprinted the holy scriptures, evolved into the Spirit King, built his own quiet spirit court, created his own star-crossed night order, and used the spiritual pressure that permeated the entire universe to eliminate all enemies blocking the way. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Are you my soul-slaying blade? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The deep sea at night is full of raging waves. Ripples chase ripples, waves chase waves. A small cargo ship loaded with containers, passing through waves of raging waves, seems like a clumsy beast struggling in the wind and waves, attempting to break through the impossible swamp. The towering waves rose from the sea and rushed towards the ship with a thunderous force, stirring up a noisy white wave. Then, carrying the strong winds of the night, they crashed into the deck like a waterfall. Suddenly, two loud and piercing explosions pierced through the roar of the sea waves, the howling of the strong wind, and the painful moans of the ship's hull. The cargo ship rose and fell in the rough waves, and the sound of explosions came from the dimly lit cabin. A person rushed out of the cabin door, grabbing the railing by the side of the ship with one hand and holding onto a handgun with the other, cautiously looking towards the cabin door behind them. The next moment, another graceful figure walked out leisurely. No matter how rough the ship was, her demeanor remained contented, as if walking on a stable ground. "Little one, you can't run away." In the flickering light reflection of the cabin, her pupils shimmered with a faint blue light, and the slightly protruding fangs between her two red lips made her look like the nightmare witch that often haunts people's dreams in Jewish mythology. "Don't be afraid." Her gaze was filled with mockery, her tongue brushing over her plump red lips like an elegant and cruel cat, gazing at the prey under her claws. "I changed my mind, you managed to run out and even killed a few guards. Although they were all useless, you were enough to impress me. Oh, I will bestow upon you noble bloodline, and you will become a member of the noble Hazumba family under the Dark Knight." "Sorry, I have no interest in becoming a vampire." Su Muqing's face was pale like white paper, but her eyes had a diamond-like calmness. Entering this unfamiliar and dangerous world, he has lost everything in his life. Except for life itself. But if there is only life left in life, it seems that one doesn't care about losing it. Su Muqing leaned against the side of the ship, trying to stabilize her body and raising the gun in her hand. He once went to the Middle East to work as a mercenary during a period of depression. Although he only served as a temporary bodyguard in the war zone, rather than helping the army in battles, he was also familiar with various firearms applications. So, since he escaped from the cage of human traffickers, 7 people have died at the muzzle of his gun. The Hogwarts who serve vampires, who gather people from all over the world and transport them to the vampire family's breeding grounds as backup food for the vampires. When Su Muqing woke up from his slumber, the same group of arrested people were locked in a container. He stole a handgun from a guard's waist and, with some luck, shot several guards in a row before escaping from the messy container. Then, he met this female vampire. Ordinary bullets are ineffective against vampires, while he only has ordinary bullets at hand. Bang! Bang! Su Muqing only had a brief encounter with guns during military training, and now standing on the bumpy deck, being able to successfully hit the target is already the result of adrenaline burst, so he can no longer force himself to hit the key points of the target. The first bullet grazed the female vampire's arm and flew somewhere, I don't know. The second bullet hit the female vampire's lower abdomen, splashing a bright spot of blood. Unfortunately, the impact of this bullet only caused a slight pause in her steps. Is it really not possible? Despair weighed heavily on her chest, and Su Muqing couldn't help but take a deep breath. At that moment, the bow of the ship suddenly sank, sinking into the bottom of two huge waves. He, who was already exhausted, suddenly lost weight and involuntarily tilted to the left, falling into the dark and raging waves. The turbulent and cold seawater swept in from all directions. Muqing felt like she had fallen into the washing machine, being tossed and sunk by the force of the water. She turned around countless times and then pushed him out of the sea, only allowing him to take a breath before swallowing him again. The cold seawater surged in waves, enveloping the icy cold and piercing bones, yet he felt a fiery heat. Ice and fire. Cold and hot. That incredibly complex feeling made him feel an inexplicable sense of tranquility. I can't see clearly. No sensation. I can't even feel the pain. It seems like the whole world is chaotic, with only my black self floating around. So, rather than saying it was oneself who died, it's more like the feeling of everything disappearing around me. Is this the feeling of death? Muqing carried a calm bystander-like demeanor, as if she was just an outsider watching the disappearance of another life. Suddenly, he heard a murmur. Can you hear me? Why don't you call my name? I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you. Who is it? The light in front of Muqing dimmed, and when he opened his eyes again, the world in front of him suddenly changed. This is an infinitely vast world. Boundless clouds surged under my feet, and the surrounding sky was empty. In the vast and boundless space, countless sword blades float, reflecting vast colors and shining with crystal-like brilliance. Suddenly falling into a dreamy state, Muqing stood alone in the darkness, her deep black pupils staring in surprise at the unfamiliar world around her. You're here. A sudden sound. The clear sky was instantly shrouded in dark clouds, and thick clouds began to snowflake, which was then swept up by the howling strong wind and drifted onto the incredibly lonely clouds. Immediately after, a brilliant light flashed from the depths of the clouds and landed in front of Muqing, transforming into a man wearing silver flame armor. He has a tall figure and a handsome face, standing quietly there like a towering mountain, giving people a heavy sense of oppression. Amidst the rising clouds, Muqing and the man in silver flame battle armor stared at each other. Then he asked, "Who are you? Did you send me to this world?" In response to his voice, the brave man gently raised his right arm. Shwa. Countless black substances flowed out of the void, transforming into a narrow black blade in his palm. Do you still have room for wild imagination? The man's pitch-black pupils tightly locked onto Muqing, and the black blade in his palm swung, sparking a raging storm and cutting open the clouds like scissors. The crack extended to Muqing's feet, and as he saw it about to cut him in half, it silently stopped spreading. Muqing's eyes flickered as she pursed the corners of her mouth and said, "I don't think you brought me here to take my life." In the man's sharp gaze, there was a hint of something else. Suddenly, he raised his hand and a colorful spiritual light flew towards Muqing. In the moment when Muqing was shining with spiritual light, her mind suddenly cleared. In the air that she had always ignored, it seemed as if countless elves had suddenly appeared. They are dancing happily, blending into his flesh and soul. Meanwhile, a series of messages began to refresh on his retina. The battle of death. For a moment, Muqing gazed at the familiar art style and couldn't help but touch the corners of her mouth. He has also experienced the baptism of the 3 major migrant worker comics, and particularly likes Death God. He has been playing mobile games related to Death God when he has free time. Is it because he is addicted to the Death God game that I gave him such a set of cheats as a bonus? He muttered, looking up at the man with a hint of curiosity, "Are you my soul-slaying sword? Kid. Are you qualified to hold me?" The silver flame man snorted coldly, his eyebrows slightly raised, showing a hint of disdain. With his cold words, the surrounding air quickly became restless as if refusing. "There will be." Muqing's hair and clothes rustled towards the wind. However, he never wavered. After a while, the man casually uttered a few words. 6 paths, my name. Is it so easy to reveal your name? In the roaring hurricane, Muqing tilted her head slightly unexpectedly, but quickly extended her right hand and said, so. Obey me, 6 paths. Let's live together in this dangerous new world. Chapter 2. Shadows and shadows, withered bones breed, and the gates of hell open. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Perhaps it's because of the intense waves, or maybe it's because time has passed too long. When Muqing dug through the huge and heavy water wall and resurfaced from the dark and stormy waves, he could only vaguely see the blurry silhouette of the cargo ship. The surroundings were pitch black, and the dim lights of the cargo ship pointed him in the direction. A huge wave rolled in, and Muqing leaped onto the top of the wave, surrounded by white foam. At a speed that was difficult to see to the naked eye, she ran along the waves. His footsteps rubbed against the water, as if he had wings on his ribs. At first, he was a bit clumsy, but he quickly adapted. The howling sea breeze and heavy waves were shattered in his charge, emitting a continuous roar, like the roar of a huge sea beast. In just a few blink of an eye, he had already approached the stern of the cargo ship, and the forward force suddenly turned into an upward force. He jumped up several tens of meters high with this leap and rushed down in a straight line from mid-air. As he was about to collide with the cargo ship bridge, he suddenly drew out a narrow black blade and fiercely rotated forward to send it out. Click! The sturdy bridge was torn open with a large hole, and the strong wind and rain rushed in eagerly. Suddenly, a wave of curses echoed from the cabin. What's going on? How did the cabin crack? You pigs, find a way to repair it quickly. The quarrels of a group of Hagui ethnic groups suddenly stopped, and they all stared at the figures that came with the wind and rain. I'm back again. Gazing at these guys with indifference, Muqing pressed her hand on the handle of the knife, and her fingers slowly brushed over the blade. A strange aura spread from his fingers, entwined around the narrow, straight-edged black knife, transforming into a mysterious pattern like a mandala flower. Pretending to be a mischievous kid. Get him. Kid, I want to suck your blood dry. Almost scared by a magic, the always fierce Hagui tribe couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed and angry. Especially the only vampire. That was a black vampire, with a scarred and ugly face twisted even more with anger, short hair shaved into a skull shape and hollow depressions under his cheekbones, making him look like a complete monster. At this moment, his dark face wore a vulture-like ferocity, his crimson eyes flickered with anger, his shattered upper lip rolled up, revealing long fangs that were sharp like the teeth of a fierce tiger. In the blink of an eye, he leaped over a distance of more than 10 meters, like a hunting cheetah pressing down from the sky, his fist stained with bloodstains, fiercely and coldly smashed down. Muqing remained calm and composed, only lifting the soul-slaying blade. A large amount of scorching air rushed out from the blade and gathered in front of him to form an air wall. Thorny cheers. The vampire, like a fierce eagle, collided with the boiling gas wall, instantly igniting a fierce water vapor. The seemingly light and thin air wall is surprisingly resilient. Muqing's mouth curved slightly, then suddenly turned around and swung a knife without reservation. In an instant, it seemed like a black mandala was in full bloom. Without warning, the black man suddenly emitted a white light all over his body, becoming increasingly dazzling. His whole body began to shake violently, followed by a loud roar, breaking into over 1,000 glowing fragments. The wind and rain swirled in the air, eliminating the debris in an instant. The vitality of vampires is terrifying. Even if they are torn apart, they can be healed through bloodsucking. However, the soul-slaying blade not only cuts through the flesh but also the soul, and the body that has lost its soul will naturally dissipate. Fire! Fire! The master suddenly vanished into ashes, and a group of Hagui tribe shook their spirits before lifting their guns in fear. But it's already late. Muqing's face was as pale as water, and he casually swung his sword with a fiery sword pressure, carrying a burning sense of war. With lightning speed, he cut several of the nearest Hagui tribes, along with their firearms, into 2 pieces. Game. Start. Boom. His right foot quickly stepped on the ground, and his figure suddenly disappeared. When he reappeared, he had already arrived next to another group of Hagui tribe who came to support him. Zheng. The soul-slaying blade pierced through, and the sword pressure erupted with a loud bang. Within a few zhang radius, both vampires and the Hagui tribe were cut to pieces. Countless limbs and flesh were flying in the sky, swept by the howling winds, shattering the nearby tempered glass like stardust, swept away by the sea breeze. Su Muqing has never learned combat, and the awakening time of the soul-slaying blade is too short to teach him the skills. However, the power and speed given by spiritual pressure alone are enough to give him a crushing physique. Why did an elephant need skills to trample on ants? Su Muqing's expression had a hint of melancholic coldness and arrogance, just like the cold fire in the ice. He moved quickly like a ghost, chopping each damn guy to pieces, without any hesitation, venting his anger and fear. The confusion about the future and the fear of death will not dissipate due to cheating. He needs to vent. Charge. Wave a knife. Charge. Wave a knife. I don't know when he has already killed from the cockpit to the bottom floor of the bridge. The dead vampires will disappear, but the ghost tribe will not. Their severed limbs, crimson blood, crushed flesh, and wide and narrow bridges and corridors are covered. The bridge is the center of work and life for the entire ship, with the top layer being the bridge, chart room, telegraph room, etc. The lower part of the bridge is a place for crew members to live, rest, and entertain. The people who were arrested were all detained in containers, and those who were operating inside the bridge were either vampires or the Hagui tribe. Su Muqing didn't have to worry about killing the wrong person. The soul-slaying blade pierced the vampire's chest, and the body disappeared after an explosion and flash. Su Muqing stood up from the red ground, his face, hands, and legs covered in the blood of the Hagui tribe. His violent aura was like a thin mist shimmering with a faint light, swaying the scattered lights and shadows in the bridge, highlighting his figure like a ghost. A strange damp heat surged through his temples, and exhaustion emerged from the heat and coldness, overwhelming the sense of detachment from the situation. His spiritual pressure is too low. Even if it's just a partial release of the soul-slaying blade, the spiritual pressure consumed by Su Muqing is still very terrifying. Fortunately, there's only one left. Su Muqing took a deep breath and her tired eyes turned, locking onto the frightened figure in the storm. This cold and alluring beauty vampire no longer has the elegance and arrogance she used to have. Her slender eyes tremble violently, and her slender and tall body clings tightly to the side of the ship, just like Su Muqing before. However, compared to Su Muqing's coldness and indifference, she was more like a startled feline. Her slender body was slightly bent, and her thin lips opened, revealing her snow-white vampire fangs. "Are you a mutant?" Su Muqing frowned slightly. This is a chaotic world of beautiful comics, with a group of mutants, but he is obviously not. Seeing his cold expression, the female vampire quickly said, "I think this is a misunderstanding. The Hasenba family in the Hellfire Club have a deep friendship, and we didn't know you were a mutant, otherwise. I'm not a mutant, so you can go die." Su Muqing had no intention of talking nonsense to her, and the thick spiritual pressure danced like a strong wind. Shadows and shadows, withered bones breed, the gates of hell open. With his indifferent words, the narrow soul-slaying blade extended once again, and the gorgeous mandala pattern on the surface of the blade quickly changed from mysterious black-purple to a secluded deep blue. This is the true half solution. Chapter 3. Hell Angels. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 6 paths are divided into Heavenly Realm Path, Shura Path, Human Path, Animal Path, hungry ghost path, and hell path. Each of the 6 paths represents a certain ability, and different abilities require different liberating languages. At this time, Su Muqing was using the hell way of the 6 paths, with abilities similar to the mirror flower water moon of Aizen. She was completely hypnotic and controlled the 5 senses, but with limited duration and slightly weaker hallucinations. She could not play with the human heart as recklessly as the mirror flower water moon. However, the underworld also has its own advantages. Su Muqing called it a real illusion, which can turn human illusions into reality. Jean Ganbao's Search for Gods, Volume 12. Its name is Yu. 1 is the short fox, which can shoot people with sand. Those who hit it will have a tight muscle, headache, and fever, and those who play it will die. This is the so. Called insinuation, which metaphorically refers to secretly attacking or framing people. A person who is dominated by the hell's way, and has 5 senses, if told that they will bleed and die, as long as the hypnotized person believes this, their body will truly bleed endlessly. Moreover, the hypnosis of the hellish path penetrates deeply into the heart and is equally effective for those with visual impairments. Are you ready? After truly half unraveling, Su Muqing's momentum increased several times again, staring at the female vampire. With a gentle wave of the soul-slaying blade, a surging spiritual pressure surged into the sky, stirring the wind and rain even more chaotic. Wait, the Hasenba family will bury you. The female vampire had an ugly expression. At first, she looked tired and thought she might not lack the power of World War I, but now she can only leave first. Who? She trembled behind her, spreading a pair of bat wings like a big bird, leaping down from the side of the ship, piercing through the fierce wind and rain, and rushing towards the depths of the sea. Su Muqing's heart stirred slightly. He is not very familiar with Marvel's vampires, but he also knows that those who can grow wings are definitely the backbone of the bloodline. But mind him. Su Muqing looked at the fleeing figure from afar and let out a soft snort. The nearly 2-meter-long soul-slaying blade was like a cold electric current, cutting through a long trail of wind and rain. At the same time, a cold drink pierced through the wind and rain. Punish him, the angel of hell. In the trembling void, a dark reflection filled with the sky transformed into a giant angel standing nearly 100 meters tall. Behind him, there were 3 pairs of pitch-black wings, holding cold and sharp black blades. His whole body seemed to be cast in bronze, emitting a metallic radiance. The so. Called Hell Angel is actually the Black Rope Heavenly Punishment Muqing of the knockoff. The Black Rope Heavenly Punishment of the Muqing is the swastika form of the captain of the 7th Division, Tsumuraswa formation, summoning a ferocious martial god with an incredibly huge body shape, holding a steel knife, wearing a helmet and a black rope behind his back. This image has some connection with Buddhism. In hell, there are 8 cold hells and 8 hot hells, and Black Rope belongs to one of the 8 hot hells, with the full name, Black Rope Prison. It is described as, a person in hell who is first scratched by a prison guard with black rope, and then cut and sawed with axes and other tools. Heavenly punishment refers to the punishment that comes down from heaven. The identity of Ming Wang in Buddhism is the incarnation of Buddha's anger. As the saying goes, all Buddhas have fire. Once the Buddha becomes angry, he will transform into a wise king. Each Buddha has a corresponding Fan incarnation, such as Maitreya Buddha's Fan incarnation being the incompetent and victorious king, and the great son Tathagata's Fan incarnation being the central immovable and respected king. Therefore, the swastika form of the Tsumura left front is an angry attempt to punish evil law enforcement officials. Su Muqing imitated this image and then referred to the silver-winged angel in a certain anime to design the image of a hell messenger. A fallen angel made of metal. The power of the hell road should manifest from human fear. The more powerful the external momentum is, the more full the sound and light effects are, and the more convincing the opponent is. At this moment, the metal blazing angel, resembling a mountain, lifted a giant blade that was tens of meters long above his head and swung it down with the momentum of cutting mountains and rivers. No one will doubt his power. Therefore boom. No. The female vampire looked at the giant blade that fell in despair, then was crushed into pieces by the raging sword. She thought she would be crushed, so she really was crushed. Su Muqing dispersed for a moment, shaking her body and almost being overturned by the strong wind. For him now, even with the half-beginning slaying soul saber, it is really too difficult. However, if he hadn't made a decisive decision, overwhelming Mesa with a half-hearted momentum, and then annihilating her with a destructive force, once the entanglement lasted for a long time, he might have capsized in the sewer. Vampires are a cursed race with many fatal weaknesses, but their strengths are also incredibly prominent, with a much longer lifespan and a much stronger physique than the average person. Especially pure-blood vampires, each one has a physique no less than Captain America's. Coupled with an incredibly long time, they have almost all mastered excellent combat skills. Su Muqing is very self-aware. He is just a novice and has no qualifications to play tricks with these old ghosts. Halfway unlocking the soul-slaying blade, although it consumes a bit more, can save a lot of trouble. Worth it. Exhausted, Su Muqing struggled through the wind and rain, returning to the bloody bridge. The rain slid down from him and mixed into the blood pool under his feet, making the terrifying crimson fade a lot. The storm hit the door of the bridge and made a continuous da-da sound, which matched his heavy and tired breathing. Su Muqing twisted her dry neck and patrolled the slaughterhouse she had created, suddenly feeling spasms in her stomach. I used to vent my emotions without feeling too much, but now when I calm down, I feel uncomfortable. It's better to change the focus. Su Muqing stumbled around and found a clean crew restroom. She relaxed her tired body, poured a few cups of pure water, and then opened her cheat. Suddenly, a column of messages flickered out. Kill the Haggoe clan crew, Soul Jade +7, kill the Haggoe clan crew, Soul Jade +5, kill the mixed blood vampire, Soul Jade +79, kill the mixed blood vampire, Soul Jade +85, kill pure blood vampire Mesa Hizenba, Soul Jade +350. Soul Jade is a high-level currency within the Death God system, which is transformed from life and soul. The stronger the life, the stronger the soul, and the more Soul Jade it transforms into. The Soul Jade transformed by ordinary people will not exceed 10 at most, while the lower-level vampires will be between 10 and 100. The Soul Jade transformed by Mesa is as high as 350, truly worthy of the title of pure blood vampire. There are probably more than 50 Hogwarts on the ship, including more than 10 ordinary vampires. In addition, Mesa, a pure blood vampire, has bestowed a total of 1035 Soul Jade upon Su Muqing. Su Muqing rubbed her temples and nodded happily. Not bad, it's just enough for 10 consecutive thrusts at once. Chapter 4. Krypton Gold Mobile Game. You are listening at novelfull.audio. First charge, check.in, 10 consecutive draws, membership privileges. These are almost the fixed routines of mobile games. The Reaper system that followed him to this world, although some functions were missing, these routines were well preserved. The time just now was too tight, and Su Muqing didn't even have time to review the system. After receiving his soul-slaying blade, he rushed back to seek revenge. Now that the system is officially launched, he first activated the 10 consecutive draws. Normally, 10 consecutive draws will definitely produce excellent items, although not the highest level, it will definitely be of great help in the early stages. Su Muqing's first victory was just enough for a 10-game draw. Ding! Accompanied by the crisp wind chimes echoing, the big windmill in the system spins. Almost in an instant, 10 cards, resembling illusions and illusions, appeared in Su Muqing's field of vision, arranged in an orderly manner. Baida Experience Book X15, R, Kendo Experience Book X17, R, Instant Step Experience Book X20, R, Hell Butterfly X3, R. Under the control and command of the Grim Reaper, it guides and transmits messages to the Grim Reaper, and is extremely sensitive to soul fluctuations. Spirit Crystal X5, R. A crystal formed by the condensation of spiritual power, which can be used to increase spiritual pressure. Soul Enlightenment Hand Armor, R. A prop that forcibly extracts the soul from the body. Annihilation Cross, R. The symbol and weapon of the Annihilator. Death God Skill Book. Sword Pressure, SR. No need to liberate the soul-slaying blade, only use the spiritual pressure on the blade to swing and attack the enemy. Soul-slaying blade. Heavenly Punishment, SSR, Holy Word Iron. Steel, SSR. The prize level is divided into 6 levels from low to high. R, SR, SSR, UR, UTR, USR. Perhaps because it is a high-level currency lottery, the prize includes an SR-level skill, an SSR-level soul-slaying sword, and an SSR-level holy text. Although among the 26 sacred texts of the Invisible Empire, steel can only be considered a medium to lower-level ability, with no other use except for resistance to beating, at least it is also comparable to the Captain-level Death God's ability. According to the characteristics of the Krypton Gold mobile game, SSR-level items will inevitably appear every 40 draws, and UR-level items will inevitably appear every 100 draws. The first 10 consecutive draws resulted in an SSR level, or 2 SSRs. It's unclear whether it's luck for beginners or a hidden trick used by the Krypton system to attract customers. In addition, the various abilities of the Krypton Gold system cannot be mastered simply by drawing. Whether it's the Grim Reaper, the face-breaking soul-slaying blade, or the holy scripts of the destroyers, the abilities drawn are only the foundation, and require continuous upgrading with gold to truly reach or even surpass the original owner. That is to say, it is inevitable for Muqing's defense to skyrocket after being branded with steel. However, to be 100% invincible, it still requires continuous upgrading and sufficient training. However, he is already very satisfied. If he had the ability of steel just now, he wouldn't be afraid to play hand-to-hand combat with vampires. Just the weapons used by those guys, whether it's handguns, assault rifles, grenades, anti-tank rocket launchers, beginner-level steel is enough to handle. Spiritual crystals and various experience books are basic rewards used to enhance spiritual pressure and basic skills. The Soul Enlightenment Hand Armor can forcibly project celestial bodies, causing separation between the mind and body. The Annihilation Cross is the weapon of the Annihilator, which can be transformed into various weapons for combat through their spiritual power. Sword Pressure is a common combat skill among the Grim Reaper, which releases the spiritual pressure attached to the soul-slaying blade. Similar to the sword energy in martial arts novels, its power increases with the increase of spiritual pressure, definitely stronger than the kind that Muqing smashed randomly. Put these prizes in your pocket, flicker with a crackle, and Muqing's fatigue instantly disappears. This is the result of the rapid increase in spiritual pressure. He found his character card and the data on it quickly refreshed. Host: Muqing Soul-Slaying Blade. 6 Paths of Reincarnation, 1. Heavenly Way, Seal, 2. Azura Road, Seal, 3. Human Tao, Seal, 4. Animal Road, Seal, 5. Hungry Ghost Road, Seal, 6. Hell Road, Open, Auxiliary Battle. Heavenly Punishment, Initial Release plus 10,000 Spirit Pressure, Spirit Seal. Steel, Beginner plus 10,000 Spirit Pressure, Skills, LV1/LV10 Fist. LV1/LV10 Go. LV2/LV10 Ghost. LV0/LV10 Spirit Pressure. 24,300 Special Skills, Death. Sword Pressure, LV1. LV10/Props. Hell Butterfly X3, Soul Enlightenment Hand Armor, Annihilation Cross Soul Jade. 35 Golden Ring. 0. preliminary understanding of the 6 paths reincarnation and opening up the hell path, Muqing's spiritual pressure has only just entered the stage of formal death. Now he has absorbed 3 spiritual crystals, along with a captain-level soul-slaying sword and a beginner-level holy text. His spiritual pressure has skyrocketed several times in an instant. Unfortunately, the next level of liberation from the 6 paths reincarnation still seems to be far away. This inexplicably awakened mysterious soul-slaying sword requires an immense amount of spiritual pressure to unseal. Muqing even had a feeling that even at the level of Yamamoto Yuanluzi Chonghua and Aizen Sosuke, it may not be able to unseal all the 6 paths. This is just the beginning. Fortunately, before completely liberating himself with the soul-slaying blade, he could use other soul-slaying blades as an aid. Moreover, adding auxiliary battle soul-slaying swords, adding spiritual seal holy texts, or decomposing and absorbing both can quickly enhance his spiritual pressure. Muqing stared for a moment, absorbing a pile of skill books, feeling more agile in her body and more skilled in wielding her sword. If it were him now, facing that pure-blood vampire again, he would have confidence to crush her with his skills. I don't know when the next 10 consecutive draws will be, but Muqing began to shift her focus to other aspects. Sign in. Check in once a day to obtain various supplies. Unfortunately, they are all low-end goods, mainly based on low-level currency, and there are also low-level skill books. Only the reward at the end of the month is quite good, it is a vice captain level soul-slaying sword. Today is my first time checking in, and the prize is a ghost trick. Ghost path is a general term for death spells, which can be divided into 3 types. Breaking path, binding path, and returning path. Among them, Hui Dao is a healing ghost Dao without a specific hierarchical system. The binding path, used for main defense and capture, and the breaking path, used for attack have a more rigorous level system, with 99 types from low to high. This first time sign in prize is a beginner ghost art. Breaking the path 4. White Thunder. In the system mall, it is worth 50,000 gold rings. Converted to real currency, that's $500,000. This is just a beginner's ghost path, the value of advanced ghost path skills needs to be multiplied at least 10 times. Moreover, it's not something you can buy just because you want to buy it. Before the 60th, there were scrolls sold in the mall for middle and low-level ghost paths, but after the 60th, high-level ghost paths can only be bought by luck. First charge big gift package. Then, Muqing's mouth couldn't help but twitch. The first charge of mobile games is usually a few yuan, and they will give a good small masterpiece, but this current version of the Death God system actually requires $1 million for the first charge. And for the first charge of $1 million, the converted currency is not soul jade, but low-level currency. Gold ring. The golden ring cannot be used to activate 10 consecutive draws, but items can be purchased in the mall, such as various ghost skills, various experimental materials, and so on. Even with Muqing's cold personality, there is still an impulse to curse at her. However, although the initial cost is terrifying, the gift package is also quite rich in items, including 2 UR level items, 1 SR level item, 10 teleportation bodies, and 10 image cards. Muqing suddenly regretted it. He shouldn't have cleaned up the vampires so quickly. Many of those who have a long lifespan have very rich wealth, especially the pure-blood vampire family, each of which is a hidden super conglomerate. He looked up at the ceiling. Maybe he could search around and explore the vampires' cabins, maybe there might be some surprises. Chapter 5. First Charge Gift Pack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It has been proven that being diligent can indeed bring surprises. In the most luxurious cabin, Muqing found 2 suitcases. 2 suitcases filled with green and oily US dollars. Muqing briefly counted and found that each box contained exactly 1 million, and 2 boxes made up 2 million. Not only is the initial deposit sufficient, but but there is also half of the surplus. Without any hesitation, he placed his hand on the banknote and silently said to himself, "Recharge 1 million." In an instant, the money in the box decreased by 1 layer. He has no plans to recharge the remaining $1 million for the time being. Coming into this unfamiliar world, he can be said to be completely innocent and must leave a portion of the money for personal gain. The comparison between the beautiful sword and the golden ring is 10.11 million. The beautiful sword disappears and only earns 100,000 golden rings, while only 100,000 golden rings can buy basic ghost skills. Su Muqing licked her lips and eagerly found the first recharge gift pack. Prize. Empress Dowager, you are, Prize 2. Soul Distribution. Contact-based healing, you are, Prize. Phantom Mask, SSR, Prize. Flying Carpet, SR, Prize. Swanshenti X10 Prize. Image Card X10. Su Muqing couldn't help but click and say, the gift package for the first charge is really worth it. A top-notch soul-slaying sword possessed by Tia Herbert, who belongs to the 30th blade and represents sacrifice. A special advanced skill unique to the king of the exterminators, Yuhaba. These two things alone have immeasurable value. Phantom Mask refers to the mask used by a household when it is first blurred. Nowadays, this is just a basic mask that cannot increase combat effectiveness, but it can to some extent increase the wearer's defense. In the future, as the wearer's spiritual pressure increases, the virtual mask will also continue to evolve, ultimately reaching the complete form of a cow's head virtual white. The flying carpet is an invention by Yusuke Urahara, which is an aerial magic carpet that can carry people and change the speed and direction of flight according to the user's wishes. Zhuanshan Ti is also an invention by Yosuke Urahara. In death, the Zhuanshan body can forcibly materialize the soul-slaying blade and summon it to the world where the wielder is located, making it easier for the wielder to defeat their soul-slaying blade and quickly achieve the level of dissolution. However, in the system of the Grim Reaper game, the function of the Zhuanshan body has changed. It is no longer a tool to assist in solving problems, but can assist Grim Reaper in special training. For example, Su Muqing wants to quickly master a certain ability, that is, he can Zhuanshan body manifest the corresponding character and quickly familiarize himself with the ability through battles with it. The last reward. An image card, as its name suggests, is a prop used to change the image. The image of the swastika of the soul-slaying blade is varied. If he doesn't like that shape, he can use the image card to change it again. Just like Tia Herbert's soul-slaying blade Empress Dowager, which directly attacks the water attribute soul-slaying blade. After the swastika is released, not only will the blade change, but it will also attach a bone armor-style battle dress to the owner. Su Muqing doesn't want to transform into a big shot in women's clothing, but instead uses image cards to modify her appearance. Of course, that will happen in the future. The newly acquired Emperor Shark is only in a semi-liberated state and must be upgraded to a higher level in order to truly return to the blade. However, in the short term, a half-returning blade is enough. As the 30th blade, Tia Herbert's poor performance does not necessarily mean that her strength is really poor. The Queen of the Imperial Shark in a semi-returning blade state can now use the returning blade skill, but there is a deviation in power. For Su Muqing, who now has limited spiritual pressure, it is actually more suitable than the true Goe blade. The biggest surprise of this first time gift pack is actually soul sharing. Contact healing. This is the unique ability of the King of Annihilators. Yuhaba, who can divide a portion of his soul through touch, heal the wounds or illnesses of others, and learn their knowledge, experience, skills, and talents through this. Being able to receive contact-based healing means that one day in the future, he will also be able to receive Holy Scripture engraving. With the ability of soul sharing, one day in the future, he can create his own star-crossed knight. Without hesitation, Su Muqing directly installed the Empress of the Imperial Shark in the battle assistance column. The soul-slaying blade can be used as a combat aid soul-slaying blade, or it can be broken down into spirit pieces for absorption. Host. Su Muqing Soul-Slaying Blade. 6 Paths of Reincarnation, 1. Heavenly Way, Seal, 2. Shura Road, Seal, 3. Human Tao, Seal, 4. Animal Road, Seal, 5. Hungry Ghost Road, Seal, 6. Hell Road, Open, Auxiliary Warfare. Empress Huangyu, Half-Returned Blade plus 20,000 Spirit Pressure, Heavenly Punishment, First Release plus 10,000 Spirit Pressure, Spirit Seal. Steel, Beginner plus 10,000 Spirit Pressure, Skills, / LV1/LV10 Fist. LV1/LV10 Go. LV2/LV10 Ghost. LV0/LV10 Spirit Pressure. 45300, 5th Grade Lingwei, Special Skills, Death. Sword Pressure, LV1.LV10/Annihilator. Soul Distribution. Contact-Based Healing Props. Divine Body X10, Image Card X10, Hell Butterfly X3, Soul Enlightenment Armor, Phantom Mask, Annihilation Cross Soul Jade. 35 Golden Ring. 10,000. The spiritual pressure of the High Reaper is roughly divided into 5 levels. The seating officer is at level 5, the deputy captain is at level 4, the captain is at level 3, the senior captain is at level 2, and the overall captain is at level 1. After attaching herself to the titles of Empress Dowager, Heavenly Punishment, and Iron and Steel, Su Muqing, who was originally just a novice, jumped into the ranks of officials. It's time to leave. Su Muqing turned her gaze and looked out the window at the sky through tempered glass. The night is still dark and heavy. However, the wind and rain are gradually subsiding. Su Muqing walked out of the cabin and quickly walked into the driver's cabin. Among the instruments, she found the distress button and issued a distress signal. He has already killed all the vampires and ghost tribes on the ship, but there are still hundreds of captured blood slaves. He will not sail the ship and cannot bring this cargo ship into the port. He can only hope that the nearby Coast Guard will come to rescue. And he also needs to inquire from the Coast Guard about his current location. Afterwards, Su Muqing cleared the surveillance footage and took out an image card, pressing it onto the flying carpet at hand. The flying carpet was gradually erased, and then changed its form again with his thoughts. Quickly, the flying carpet full of Middle Eastern style transformed into a lightweight white cloud. Su Muqing leaped forward and stepped on the white clouds. His clothes were as soft as moonlight, complemented by pure white clouds, exuding a unique elegance. This is much more pleasing to the eye. He laughed and rode the white clouds into the air, hiding in a cloud, waiting for the arrival of the coastal police ship. Chapter 6. Killer Championship. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The intermittent sound of the ship's whistle, mixed with the sharp cries of seagulls, intertwines the two sounds and forms a unique symphony by the seaside. When the warm sea breeze blew into the room in the early morning, making the whole room cool, Su Muqing woke up from a shallow sleep, looked around the unfamiliar environment, sighed, stood up, walked to the window, and looked into the distant sky. At this moment, the light of the rising sun penetrates through the thin mist in the sky, reflecting on the calm sea surface with sparkling waves. Where is there still the terrifying noise of last night? This is Delsborough, a port town located in the northeast of England. Although it is not very large, the environment is relatively elegant. If there is not a whistle playing all day, the atmosphere would be more comfortable. The place where Su Muqing is located is the only hotel in the town. He found an Asian identity card among the bodies of the Hagui tribe. Although there was some difference in appearance, it was enough to deceive the face-blind Westerners. So, when he entered this seaside town, he relied on that ID card and openly checked into the Ivan Apartment Hotel. Next, he should carefully consider his future career. For him, This is an incredibly unfamiliar world. What is unfamiliar is not the environment, but the absence of any involvement. If he wants to return to a familiar life, he should rush back to China, even if there are no familiar people there, but the environment is definitely very familiar. However, if this world is really a dangerous marvel, then he should turn to live in the United States. In that free-cooking country, he can freely hunt down alien life and accumulate enough soul jade upgrades. Dudu. Knocking on the door. Su Muqing frowned and said, "Who is it?" "Room service." A greeting came from outside the door, "Your breakfast, sir." Su Muqing's eyes narrowed slightly. Firstly, he did not order breakfast. Secondly, he felt the smell of death. There were two faint spiritual pressures outside the door, one of which was rapidly disappearing. Is the power of vampires so great that they can track down their messages so quickly? Su Muqing pursed the corners of her mouth slightly, and cold flames seeped out of her eyes. If the vampires really come to find him, he would save himself by looking for monsters everywhere. But the guys outside have too low spiritual pressure, more like ghosts than vampires. He walked to the door of the room without any cover and opened it directly. Suddenly, a black shadow rushed over from outside. That was a tough white man in his 40s, with almost bald short hair and dressed in the attire of a waiter. His appearance was not particularly unusual, but the dense white teeth revealed when he grinned made him look very fierce. He pulled a metal wire between his hands and circled it around Su Muqing's neck, as if intending to use it to strangle him. "Oh, that's not right." From the true waiter lying at his feet, it seems that he was planning to strangle Su Muqing with metal wire. Su Muqing felt a bit uninteresting. If it were a vampire or a ghost tribe who came to seek revenge, it would not be possible to do so hastily. Is it a robber? It is said that, free Miley Jian, every day of gunfight, and the British Empire is not to be outdone. Su Muqing's mind was divided, but her movements were not slow at all. Before the white man was about to pounce, she suddenly kicked out. Dong! The white man's face suddenly changed, flying back like a stone, slamming heavily against the wall behind him, making a dull sound. He was then bounced back onto the thick carpet in the corridor, trembling violently a few times, and then involuntarily opened his mouth, spraying out a mouthful of crimson blood. Su Muqing calmly stepped out, leaped over the body of the waiter, and stepped back on him, who was about to get up, before asking, "Who are you?" "I." The white man looked at him in terror. Just as he spoke, the door to the room next to him suddenly opened, and an Asian woman in pajamas flashed out, lifting her gun and ready to shoot. In an instant, Su Muqing couldn't help but feel an extra knife in her hand. The blade cuts through the void, reflecting a faint light with a heavenly melody. The Asian woman's eyes lit up as she saw the long sword, which had already pierced through the gun in her hand and pressed against her throat. Pop! The gun is broken. The Asian woman held the bare barrel of the gun and stared at the young man who appeared in front of her at an unknown time, with trembling eyes filled with fear. However, in just a few blinks, the unwillingness and fear in her expression disappeared. She closed her eyes and her expression became calm, with a sense of liberation and freedom. At this moment, she heard the voice of the youth. "Who are you again?" "Male and female thieves." The Asian woman opened her eyes and looked at the young man strangely. "You don't know who we are?" Su Muqing asked her, "Should I know who you are?" The Asian woman hesitated for a moment and slowly lifted her other hand. Her hand held a mobile phone, and the display screen displayed an electronic map with two light dots overlapping in the center, slowly spreading ripples. The Asian woman looked at the Asian youth in front of her, then at the weak white man over there. Her expression became even more peculiar, and she said in a strange language, "Welcome to the Killer Championship." Su Muqing was taken aback for a moment and said, "Killer Championship? What is it?" The Killer Championship is a competition that only assassins participate in. The Asian woman's lips tugged with a self-deprecating tone, jointly designed by some thrilling billionaires. It is held every 7 years in different locations, and the winner will receive a reward of $10 million, as well as the title of World's Best Killer. Number of kills in the competition. Su Muqing scanned the body of the waiter and glanced at each of the two assassins, making both of them feel a bone-chilling sensation. The competition was self-destructive. The Asian woman swallowed her saliva and answered him. 30 famous assassins hunted each other in this small town until only one living person remained, becoming the champion of this competition. She looked at the body with some helplessness and said, "Many assassins don't care about involving innocent people in order to win." 30 assassins were hunting each other. The white man wanted to ambush an Asian woman, so he killed the hotel waiter and sent the waiter's body to her doorstep as a target. He himself prepared to move to the position of Su Muqing's window to launch a surprise attack. Then, he kicked on the iron plate. Su Muqing suddenly asked in Chinese. The Asian woman was stunned and nodded, saying, "Yes." Su Muqing. "Your name?" The Asian woman is very obedient. Zheng Lai. "Okay, Zheng Lai." Su Muqing withdrew the blade, and the cold flame in her eyes seemed to warm up a bit. "For the sake of my fellow countrymen, I won't kill you, but could you please help me by notifying the organizers that I also want to participate in this tournament?" Chapter 7. I want to participate in the competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Muqing needs money. $10 million is not a small number. Besides, the final harvest may not exceed 10 million. However, Su Muqing's request clearly surprised Zheng Lai. She was stunned and said, "Are you going to participate in the Killer Championship?" Su Muqing. "That's right." Zheng Lai hesitated for a moment before solemnly warning, "Listen, I don't know who you really are, but I want to warn you that being a killer is not a good job. Once you step into this profession, the sins you carry will affect you for a lifetime." Su Muqing looked at her and said, "So why did you become a killer?" Zheng Lai remained silent for a moment before reluctantly answering, "I have no choice." Su Muqing glanced at her face and said calmly, "I'm not interested in becoming a killer, I'm just a bit short of money. I want to earn the prize money for this game." Zheng Lai smiled bitterly and said, "The competition is very dangerous." Su Muqing gave a faint smile, but there was a hint of disdain in her eyes. "I am more dangerous." "Okay." Zheng Lai helplessly picked up his phone and said, "I can help you inquire with the organizers, but I cannot guarantee that they will agree." Su Muqing glanced at the monitor hanging in the corridor and said, "They will agree." Delsborough has a high-density surveillance system, and all available motion detectors and stealth cameras in the town, including the communication system used by the police, are the eyes of the organizers of the Killer Championship. Any battle between assassins will be played in real time for those wealthy individuals. That is to say, the incident where Su Muqing severely injured the white man and instantly subdued Zheng Lai afterwards was fully revealed in the eyes of a group of spectators. Exciting matches can attract more viewers, and Su Muqing believes that those guys won't refuse him. Zheng Lai's hand stiffened for a moment, but he quickly calmed down, dialed the organizer's phone number, and quickly informed Su Muqing of his request. Then, she handed her phone to Su Muqing. Su Muqing was not surprised. She took the phone and said directly, "Do you agree?" The voice across from him paused slightly and then replied, "We have just seen Mr. Lei's skills, and we welcome him to join this grand event, but..." Su Muqing's expression remained unchanged, "But what?" These people are indeed very knowledgeable, and in just a few minutes, they had already figured out their background. Of course, it's just the origin of the ID card he picked up, and it's still very superficial. After all, that guy is serving the vampire family, and these guys who enjoy watching ordinary assassins kill each other are obviously unable to easily gather information about the vampire family. "We need to implant a signal in your body so that we can track your position," said the voice across from us. "This is a grand performance event, and we need to see the outstanding performances of the contestants. All the contestants are treated equally. Please understand this, Mr. Lei. Su Muqing glanced at Zheng Lailai and opened her collar, revealing her warm skin. There was a freshly sewn scar on her lower abdomen. That's where the implanted signal is located. Don't be so troublesome. Su Muqing didn't want to install anything messy in her body. She turned around and walked to the white man's side. He had already passed out in pain. Su Muqing's face remained unchanged. With a flick of the soul-slaying blade in his hand, the first blade cut open his throat, and the second blade pierced into his lower abdomen, picking out the signal device embedded inside. Kill elite assassin, Soul Jade +6, he pinched the small signal and gestured to the camera, I'll take his signal, that's enough, isn't it? However, the other party immediately said, sorry, the signal device can only send a normal signal by sensing the normal temperature inside the human body. Once the signal device cannot sense the temperature, it means that the athlete has died. No problem, said Su Muqing with a smirk on her face. He walked into the room with a signal, washed away the blood on it with water, and then swallowed the signal in front of the camera, asking, is this okay? The voice across from him paused for a moment before replying, this is also possible. So, Mr. Lei, welcome to officially become a participant in the Killer Championship, and I hope you become the winner of this competition. Su Muqing put down her phone, her eyes as cold as a rainy day. Zheng Lailai smiled, as if his facial muscles were twitching. Your request has been fulfilled, are you going to kill me? Her expression was calm, as if she had taken death lightly. Su Muqing gave her a sideways glance and said, why should I kill you? Zheng Lailai gathered his mind slightly and said, the rules of the competition are that there is only one champion left in the end. Su Muqing fell silent for a moment and suddenly asked, why are you participating in this game? Zheng Lailai's eyes turned slightly red, and after a moment, he replied, the target in your last glance has a special flavor. Often, deep down in their hearts, they are all looking forward to the arrival of this day. However, the target I killed before was not like this. She was just an innocent woman, and she was still pregnant with a child. From then on, I can never get rid of this scene. If I participate in this competition, if I win, I can have enough money to spend the second half of my life. If I lose, it will be considered as retribution. She is the most famous assassin in the East in the past 3 years, but she never takes action against ordinary people, and this only time has become a nightmare that she cannot escape. She came to participate in this almost unbeatable competition, actually prepared to redeem herself with her life. She is afraid of death. She is not afraid of death either. Su Muqing suddenly swung his sword. The knife light is beautiful and fleeting, with a hint of charm. Before Zheng Lailai could even close his eyes, he felt a slight pain in his lower abdomen. A little jumping light jumped out of the flesh and blood, and before it landed on the carpet below, it was crushed by the passing knife light. Su Muqing coldly announced, now you are dead. I. Zheng Lailai covered his bleeding abdomen and stared at him blankly. If you want to redeem yourself, there will be plenty of opportunities in the future. Su Muqing threw her phone and picked up the white man's phone, gently waving it. At least for now, I need your help. He knows nothing about this assassin world and needs insiders like Zheng Lailai to guide him. In addition, he needs a true identity that belongs to him. Zheng Lailai is an elite assassin in the dark world and must be an expert in changing his identity at will. Zheng Lailai couldn't believe it. Are you going to let me go? Su Muqing did not respond to her. He doesn't like to say it twice. He returned to his room, tidied up a bit, and when he walked out, he saw Zheng Lailai, who had changed his clothes, already waiting for him at the door. Su Muqing pointed to the body at the door and said, what will they do? Zheng Lailai Mumu's answer. The organizer has a cleaning team, and once we leave, this place will be cleaned up. They have a lot of power and are enough to sweep away all traces. Since that's the case, then leave. Su Muqing's figure moved and walked towards the outside. A new game has begun. Chapter 8. First Drop of Blood. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. For Su Muqing today, this is really just a game, it's still a simple mode game. Sitting in the passenger seat, Su Muqing looked at the nearest signal source and asked, "What is this place?" Zheng Lailai looked at it and said, "The church." This electronic map is very blurry, only showing the rough terrain and the distance to the opponents, without any markings on various buildings. However, most assassins will come to this small town in advance to have a detailed understanding of the various situations in the town, in order to increase the chances of winning during the competition. Although Zheng Lailai is determined to die, he has also put in a lot of effort on this trip. She is indeed looking forward to the liberation after death, but as an elite assassin, she does not want to die too hastily. My recent goal is to go there. Okay. Zheng Lailai nodded, lit the fire, and drove towards the church. She is now a tool person and does not intend to express any opinions unless necessary. On the way, Su Muqing looked at the scenery of the small town and said, "I need a brand new identity." What? Zheng Lailai was taken aback. Su Muqing said straightforwardly, "I need a brand new and legal identity. I think you can help me." After a while, Zheng Lailai said in a daze, "Is that why you let me go?" Su Muqing glanced at her and honestly replied, "Yes." Zheng Lailai smiled weakly and said, "I understand. As long as I'm not dead, I'll help you with it." Su Muqing played with her phone and looked at the jumping light dots on the screen, asking with great interest, "How much do you know about these contestants? If you were invited to participate in this cruel game, you should all be top-notch assassins, right? In the dark world, we do have some reputation, but if we are top-notch assassins, it's really just advertising slogans." Zheng Lailai said expressionlessly, "All the assassins who come to participate in this competition are unlicensed organizations. Those top assassins from truly large organizations will not come here to play self-destructive games just for a mere 10 million yuan bounty. The value of top assassins is almost all over 10 million yuan. No wonder you are so weak." Su Muqing spoke without any courtesy, and Zheng Lailai rolled his eyes, closed his mouth, and stopped talking. "The main reason is that the church is already in front of us." Zheng Lailai opened the door and got off the car. He took out his phone and looked in the other direction, saying, "It seems that we are not the only ones who are following this." On the display screen, another light spot is rapidly approaching, indicating that another hunter is approaching. The more you come, the better. The positions of these guys are too scattered, and each one is cunning like a fox. Su Muqing is looking forward to it once and for all. Don't underestimate them. Zheng Lailai warned solemnly, "Although we are not top-notch assassins, anyone who can establish a reputation in the assassin world has their own unique skills. I know you are very skilled, but if you underestimate them because of this, you may capsize in the sewer." Su Muqing pondered for a moment and said seriously, "Thank you." The skyrocketing spiritual pressure made him feel a bit too inflated. Some ordinary assassins are nothing, but who knows if there are any people among these guys who pretend to be pigs and eat tigers. If there were any mutants with strange abilities, they might suffer a big loss. After all, this is not a normal world, and no one knows what kind of secretive secrets are hidden in the shadows around them. Standing at the entrance of the church, Su Muqing opened the door without any cover and walked straight in. The old church is quite gloomy, and the seats on both sides are stained with dust, as if they have not been used for a long time. At the end of the church, there is a huge cross hanging. Underneath the cross, a person dressed in priest's attire turned his head in shock. He was holding a bottle of wine in his hand, feeling dejected in shock. Just as he was about to speak, a graceful figure crawled in from the window and took a few steps towards him, with the muzzle of the gun pressing against his forehead. The person who suddenly intervened was naturally Zheng Lailai. Although Su Muqing used spiritual pressure to detect and knew that there was no one else in the church, Zheng Lai still insisted on being careful and wanted Su Muqing, a novice, to attract attention directly, while she detoured in from the side. However, the plan seems a bit too smooth. Describing the elderly pastor with a worried expression on his face, as if he had just experienced a disaster and his emotions were almost on the verge of collapse. The wine bottle in his hand fell to the ground, shattering into pieces. The pastor prayed in terror, "No matter what, please don't hurt me." Zheng Lai exclaimed in shock, "What's wrong with you? Why don't you defend yourself?" The pastor didn't seem to understand her words, just pleaded bitterly, "Please, I don't have much money, I'm just a pastor, please." Zheng Lai tugged at the corner of his mouth, took out his phone with his left hand, and looked at the image on it. Yes, it was pointing to this person. At this moment, Su Muqing approached and looked at the pastor. He raised his hand and pressed Zheng Lai's gun, saying, "The target seems to have a problem. He's not the killer." Just now he felt a bit strange. The killer willpower of these elites is stronger than that of ordinary people, so their spiritual pressure is also more prominent. However, the spiritual pressure of this priest is much worse than that of ordinary people. It is obvious that although he has a signal source on him, he is not a killer himself. Did the organizer have an error, implanting a signal source into the ordinary human body? But Zheng Lai still had doubts, but just as he spoke, a huge explosion could be heard from the entrance. The wall collapsed and the bricks cracked, causing dust to spread everywhere. "Be careful, grenade." Zheng Lai turned over in shock, quickly dodged to one side, and also pulled away the pastor. After experiencing the last incident, her heart became softer and softer. The next second, a fierce Middle Eastern soldier jumped in from the window on the other side, with a pair of sharp and powerful eyes rolling past like thunder. When he saw Su Muqing, he immediately raised his rifle and prepared to pull the trigger. But soon, his face changed. The figure across from him was incredibly fast. As soon as his fingers exerted force, he felt a sudden pain in his body and then flew back towards the entrance. The window lattice is broken. He saw himself flying out. But how did he see himself flying out? Then he immediately realized that what flew out of the window was a headless body. "Why did you lose your head?" The soldier's consciousness came to a sudden halt and he didn't think about it anymore. Because he lost the ability to think. Under the huge cross, Su Muqing calmly sheathed her sword. "Kill elite assassin, Soul Jade +7, in the just moment, he swung a knife. The faint sword light, with a hint of crimson, twisted the soldier's neck as he was about to fly out of the window. At this moment, the soldier happened to break the window, so his head flew out of the window first, and his remaining strength did not dissipate, and he also fell outside the window. Next to him, Zheng Lai stood up speechless, while the unlucky pastor stared at him as if seeing a ghost. Su Muqing looked back at him and said calmly, "Now, it's your turn." Chapter 9. Changes in competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Misfortune McAvoy is the only pastor in town. He had just returned from a meager breakfast, but he didn't know which genius assassin had the idea. In order to disappear from the sight of many opponents, he forcefully dug out the signal in his body and threw it into the food in the restaurant. Then, he was unknowingly swallowed by the pastor. So, McAvoy replaced the assassin and became the target of other assassins. With a few words to clarify the situation, McAvoy looked desperate and said, "So, I'm getting involved in a murder game." Zheng Lai corrected, "It's a killer game." McAvoy was about to collapse, hysterical. "Everyone thinks I'm a killer. Everyone wants me to die." Zheng Lai. "That's right. Oh, it's really amazing." The pastor was so desperate that he spat out a fragrant breath and hugged his head, almost crying uncontrollably. "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." Looking at the unlucky pastor with a face full of despair, Zheng Lai remembered the innocent woman again. His expression gradually softened and he comforted, "You will be fine. The signal source is in your stomach bag, just spit it out." The pastor's mind was in a mess, and after much thought, he suggested, "Why don't we go report it to the police?" Zheng Lai frowned and said, "The guys who are hosting this competition are all very powerful people. The police have long been under their control. Otherwise, with so many people dying in town, how could they not have paid attention? You'd better spit out the signal source as soon as possible." The pastor clenched his throat helplessly, but couldn't vomit anything. He could only cry without tears and shout, "I'm too nervous to vomit. What should I do?" Zheng Lai stared at him and said, "You must get it out, either from the top or from the bottom." The unlucky pastor wanted to cry even more. Su Muqing shook her head and said to Zheng Lai, "You stay here and watch him. I'll go and kill all the other guys." The pastor's mournful voice paused and he hurriedly said, "Wait a minute. What's going on?" Su Muqing looked at him askance, and the pastor's face was pale, clearly frightened, but still uplifted. He repeatedly said, "Please, please, don't kill anyone." Su Muqing curled her lips and said, "Even if they will kill you." The pastor said weakly, Maybe we can find a way to coexist." "Oh, take your time looking." The legendary European Virgin Mary, Su Muqing, had seen it and was too lazy to talk to him. She gave Zheng Lai a wink and turned around to leave the church. "Hey!" The pastor waved to stop him from leaving, but in the end, he lowered his head in despair. Zheng Lai shook his head and sighed, "You better find a way to deal with your troubles, otherwise there will really be many assassins coming to take your life." Without Zheng Lai following by, Su Muqing's efficiency is actually higher. He doesn't intend to use the power of the Grim Reaper in front of everyone. Now that Zheng Lai is not around, he just needs to avoid many cameras and can freely play. The only trouble is that the signal receivers used by the participating assassins can only track the signal source within 100 meters, beyond which there is only a blank space. Fortunately, the area of Delsborough is not large, even the suburbs are only 54 square kilometers, and it won't take long to drive around for a few laps. As a result, the situation began to rapidly change in this hidden competition that lasted for 24 hours. A killer disguised as a police officer. A killer disguised as a young woman. A killer running around the street corner wall. Many assassins are still unaware of what has happened, only to see a blade of light flying up, and then there is only darkness before their eyes. For these guys with bloody hands, Su Muqing showed no mercy. Zheng Lai has already roughly introduced to him that the assassins who come to participate in the competition are basically people full of evil deeds. Including herself. So, there's no need to be lenient. 3. 5. 9. The number of assassins is rapidly decreasing, and many people are dying silently. The competition seems to be coming to an end soon. In the private estate outside Delsborough, long desks were piled with messy bills, and wealthy tycoons sitting on either side, holding champagne-filled glasses, fiercely arguing with each other about something. Robert, standing at the end of the long table, had a serious face covered in dark clouds. He held multiple killer tournaments in a row not to pursue excitement, but to earn more profits from it. These wealthy individuals from all over the world come to watch the game with a large amount of money, placing heavy bets on their favorite players, and in the end, most of the profits will fall into the hands of this banker. However, this suddenly emerging Asian kid is so powerful that he can kill everything. How can this gambling game continue? He regretted it. I shouldn't have agreed to his request before. Robert's expression was uncertain as the female assistant suddenly walked over and whispered in his ear, "We have a gathering place where 9 contestants have gathered. They seem to be planning to use it as a battlefield." Robert's expression changed and he quickly asked, "They have already started war?" "No," the female assistant shook her head and said, "That's a nightclub." There should be too many people inside. The contestants don't know who their opponents are, and no one dares to take action for a while. Very good. Robert's eyes lit up and he said, let the technicians send messages to the players there. The female assistant was shocked and said, what message should I send? This kind of situation has never happened before. Send them the message about that Asian kid, Robert said fiercely. Tell them they're facing the world's top assassins, and apart from joining forces, they have no chance of surviving. The female assistant hesitated and said, this seems to be against the rules. I am the rule. Robert glared at her and then said, also, send a message to that Asian kid, telling him that many assassins are gathering at that nightclub and inviting him over. The female assistant opened her mouth and hesitated to speak. Under the boss's angry gaze, she turned around and walked to the technical department. After watching the female assistant leave, Robert immediately turned around and announced loudly in the host's tone, everyone, we just foresaw a new point. 9 contestants gathered in the same vulgar place, and that magical Eastern kid is also rushing there now. We will see a bloody massacre, whether the magical kid completely destroyed the 9 assassins or the 9 assassins killed the magical kid, everyone can bet happily. This time, the wealthy individuals who were already somewhat lacking in interest became excited again. They pursue not only bloody excitement, but also the pleasure of exploring the unknown. I won against the magical boy, 5 million. I lost against magical kid, it's also 5 million. I can barely survive 2 people, 1 million. Chapter 10. The end of the competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's getting late, and another storm is coming. The sound of thunder, rain, and waves mixed together in the sky and earth, violently shaking the town. On the street, heavy rain flowed down the ridge of the roof, and the strong wind whipped the ground, causing water to spray like a fountain, creating a hazy atmosphere everywhere. Angel Titty Nightclub. Muqing sat in the driver's seat, looked at the received message, and then opened the local network to briefly check the so-called gathering place. It is indeed a vulgar place. That is a striptease club, not only in the town of Dellsborough, but also in a large area nearby, which is a very famous amusement park with many crowds. On such a dull night, there should be many customers, right? Muqing frowned at this. More people mean more concerns, after all, he is not a true killer and cannot be ruthless. Once a war breaks out in the crowd, even if he is cautious, he will still implicate innocent people. However, it seems that even if he doesn't attend this gathering, those guys who have completely gone crazy won't stop. For them, ordinary people are originally props used to fight for victory. It's better to finish earlier. Muqing took a deep breath, pushed the door open, and soon jumped into the storm. The location of the nightclub is 4 or 5 streets away from his location. If you are driving, you need to go in a big circle. It's better to walk straight to get there faster. He ran in the rain, against the wind and rain, leaping over buildings, and suddenly felt a fierce passion. The wind and rain soaked his delicate eyebrows, but the cold fire in his eyes became even more intense. In no time, Muqing had followed the guidance of the map and arrived at the entrance of the Seeking nightclub. From the appearance, it seems that this place does not live up to its reputation. The street in front of the door looks dirty, and there are not many flashing neon lights. Only the side of the door, which is soaked in rain, signs the name of the nightclub. However, despite its bleak appearance, business looks quite prosperous, with various vehicles parked on the open space in front of the door. Muqing lifted her phone again, displaying 9 dots of light that almost overlapped. He is the 10th spot of light. Pay a £30 entry fee at the door, and the black man at the door opens it for him. Suddenly, intense and dynamic music flowed out. Muqing walked calmly into the noisy nightclub. After turning the short corridor, one can see the central circular platform at a glance, with beautiful women dancing seductive dances. There are many seats around the platform, and almost every seat is filled with people. Su Muqing's gaze leaped over the crowd and scanned the corners of the surrounding walls. As expected. In such a place, there must be surveillance. Su Muqing could feel that as he entered the door, some people's muscles were tense. On the surface, they were chatting and laughing loudly with their companions, or teasing the half-fruit waitress with a coquettish expression, but both mentally and physically were tense like bowstrings. Is this treating me as a target? Su Muqing didn't cover up, and the soul-slaying blade was hanging from her waist. These guys couldn't possibly not notice. He walked forward without any hesitation, passing between the two waitresses. In an instant, the bald man who was joking with the half-fruit waitress suddenly kicked her away and pulled his rifle out from under his clothes. However, when he tried to pull the trigger, Su Muqing had already shaken and approached him. With his left foot touching the ground, his body quickly spun around, and his right foot swept horizontally, as fast as lightning, like the hammer of a pile driver, sweeping heavily against his left waist. Oh! The bald man showed a painful expression and involuntarily took 2 steps back. At this moment, among the panicked crowd around, several figures stood up and aimed their black guns at each other. Su Muqing stepped forward again, quickly reaching out her right hand and grabbing the bald man's left forearm. She forcefully pulled down and drew a large arc in a clockwise direction, twisting her opponent's arm into mid-air. Then, she let go of his hand and let him fly out like a stone, crossing a beautiful arc. Bang, bang, bang. People are flipping their horses. A few bullets ejected from the muzzle were all consumed by the unlucky bald head. With the sound of gunfire, the nightclub finally became chaotic. Everywhere were screams of shock and figures running around in panic. At the same time, someone grabbed Su Muqing's neck from behind and stabbed him in the throat with a knife in the other hand. The half-fruit waitress who had just passed by him. Obviously, she is also one of the assassins. Su Muqing didn't look back. Under numerous surveillance cameras, he didn't show much behavior. He just casually punched her pelvic area with a backhand, then bent forward, grabbed her elbow that was holding his neck, and then tilted his body to the left, lifting the female assassin's body and throwing it towards another assassin. In the next moment, he pulled out the knife from his waist. Under the flickering neon lights, the dark blade was soaked in bright red. In an instant, Su Muqing quickly flashed forward, shuttling through the chaotic crowd. Every time the blade flickered, one person would fall to the ground. Bright red like electricity. Red as a shower of flowers. Suddenly, he paused slightly, lifted his foot, and kicked his heel back, kicking the heavy seat beside him straight up. Everyone dodged in an uproar, only to hear a loud bang. The card seat collided with the wall and was directly embedded in the small part. In the diffuse dust, a shower of blood spurted out. Then, the crushed body was exposed on the outside arm, weakly hanging down, and a bazooka rocket launcher fell to the ground. Everyone took a cold breath in unison. Is this guy crazy? In such a narrow space, I actually plan to use rockets. Is he planning to die together? The assassins present have been completely wiped out, otherwise someone would have taken it for granted. That guy was originally a notorious lunatic. Compared to other well-trained assassins, his skills were completely out of the league, but his odds in this game were among the top, relying on his recklessness, barbarism, and cruelty. He, as a desperate lunatic, makes plans to almost perish without feeling too strange. Su Muqing lifted her phone and saw that there was only one spot left on the display screen. He nodded in satisfaction, all the enemies were dealt with, and there were no accidental casualties. Oh, a few people fell while running around, maybe their bones were broken by someone trampling on them, so it's not his business. He turned around and walked towards the door, dialing Zheng Lailai's phone. From the refreshed data, except for the dozen or so people he killed, most of the other assassins have been depleted internally. Except for the one in the unlucky priest's belly and the one carried by the previous championship champion. That is to say, as long as we kill the previous champion again, this competition will be considered over. There are at least 10 hours left until the 24-hour deadline set by the organizer. I hope the champion doesn't find a place to cat around. Su Muqing muttered to herself, waiting for news from Zheng Lai. However, there has been no movement. Something's wrong. Su Muqing hung up her phone, her just calmed gaze once again tinged with a faint cold fire. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.